YouTube, what is up? I am so excited to finally be standing here with the camera and about to say what I'm gonna say. There it is. Well, there's some of it, and then there's a bunch of stuff in that cooler over there. But my 110, everything's here. Every single part that I need other than graphics and a seat cover is here. Shit is crazy right now.
Guess what, bitch? Coronavirus!
This is actually, we're probably going on like a little over a month that it's been a little nuts at my house because my wife is a medical provider, and when this all started, we kind of made the adult smart decision that because she is a medical provider and is around patients all the time, she was going to bring anything she was exposed to home to me if she was ever exposed. So I went to the big, beautiful garage that I normally work out of that has every tool imaginable and brought my 110, my 50, and then my 125 motor, and then some of the frame and chassis parts to my garage at my house, which you can see is not big, and it's also set up to be a wood shop. I can't complain, you know, like the way things are in the world right now. I'm just happy that my wife and I are both safe, and that, you know, like we live in an area that isn't, you know, super exposed, at least not yet. And we live in a place that's really rural, so we can get away from people. And I mean, I obviously have plenty to do, so, you know, I'm trying to be positive about everything, and I'm hoping that this video is, you know, for everyone that's stuck at home that wanted to know what was going on, we're going to have a cool video. But before I get started completely in this, I want to show you guys how sick this powder-coated work came out. So I got to give a huge shout out to a company. It's in Romney, West Virginia. It is called Mountain State Powder Coating. They are the ones that did the work on. I sent a ton of stuff up there. So I sent the frame and swing arm for the 110, the lower fork tubes, and then I had obviously the rims and the hubs done, and obviously like the outside of the brake so they match the hub, and then triple clamps. And then I also had them do all my CRF 50 stuff. This is this frame and swing arm off of my 50. I am very pleased with not only the quality of the work, but the price. The price compared to the other places I had checked around that were not anywhere isn't close locally to me as they were. And I mean, the work is like completely top notch, and I couldn't be more excited with how everything looks. So if you're any kind of local to me or near Romney, West Virginia, I'm going to leave the link in the description, Mountain State Powder Coating. Make sure you check those guys out because not only were the prices great, but this stuff looks really good. The first thing I do want to talk about though, because I have to give another person a shout out, is these wheels. One, the powder coat looks sick, but the other thing is I have absolutely no idea how to lace and true a dirt bike wheel properly. I can change tires, I can change tubes, I can do all that stuff. I'm not good at it, but I know how to do it. But when it comes to, you know, taking hubs and rims that have been taken apart, putting brand new spokes in and putting it on, you know, one of the stands and spinning and truing it perfectly, never done it. And I've watched it done and it looks relatively difficult. I think I could figure it out if I wanted to, but I have a local friend, which I think I mentioned already, who is also a professional motocross racer. He's a local real estate agent, and he does have a YouTube channel. His name's Nick Fratzor. I'm going to put his link in the description with all of this other stuff. But he was actually cool enough to lace and true these wheels for me, put the tires back on. Literally, he dropped them off to me today, dropped them in the bed of my truck for me, and he actually, because he's a real estate agent, shoots a lot of video stuff too. He was cool enough to grab a bunch of clips of him building these wheels for me. So I'm going to cut to that now.
So I told Logan I'd help him lace up some wheels, and for his new 110, which is going to be pretty sick, by the way. He showed me some of his powder coated parts. It's going to be pretty sweet. Okay, so one of the first things we have to do is we got to freeze the bearings so we can press them in to the hubs. In order to lace these wheels and get them true, we got to put the bearings in, then we have to put the axles through the bearings to make sure everything works properly so that the wheel and the hub will spin completely straight. So the first thing I'm going to do is put these in my freezer over here, and then let them freeze up for a little bit, press them into the hubs, and then we'll go on to the next part. Alright, so we've got both sets of hubs, bearings pressed, and these seals installed. This was the rear, and this is the front. Looking solid. Look at those colors. Whew. Looking beautiful. And now it is time to start lacing spokes and threading these bad boys in. Both wheels are now done and ready to be trued. Looking sweet. So we just finished putting the spokes in and put it on the truing stand. I'll show you what it looks like right now. A little crooked, that's because none of the spokes are tight, but it'll be tight here pretty shortly. Alright, time for the moment of truth. Woo! Like a glove. Beautiful. Check that out. Logan's gonna be pumped. Alright, and after a couple hours rebuilding both wheels, we have the final product. Check it out. Wow. These things are beautiful. That's the back tire. Got the front tire right here if I can squeeze it out from under. Boom. Check them out. Beautiful. Awesome. Pumped to finally have these done, and off to Logan.
Before I start putting anything back together on the actual bike, I need to rebuild my front forks because that's really the only thing that I have to put together separately to get on the bike. Like I said, I had these powder coated, and while we're talking suspension, I'll go ahead and go through. What I am doing for now is I just kept the stock rear shock and replaced it with a BBR heavy duty spring. But I will leave the link in the description of the video I used on how to put this on. And then for the front forks, which seems to be pretty much common on every pit bike, I am doing the BBR dampening rods and the stiff springs. So if you're wondering, the dampening rods give you the ability to lift your front end about 1.5 inches higher than stock ride height. But I'm still using the shock from, just the OEM shock. I did raise it a little bit with how much thread space you have to pick the shock up and down. I maybe added like 1/2 inch. So what I'm going to do for now is, because the BBR spring is just kind of to hold me over until I get to ride the bike and see how aggressive I'm going to be on it, and if I need to go crazy with like an Elka shock, or if I could get away with like one of those cheaper D&M shocks. And then from there, I'll figure out if I want to put an extension, if I want to put a longer swing arm, what I'm going to do when it's summer and I get to ride the bike more and kind of get the feel of the bike and what I want to do with it. The dampening rods are already in there for me to go ahead and do whatever, and I don't have to take the forks apart again. So yeah, let's build these forks. Alright, just like that, we got forks rebuilt. if you saw in the time lapse there, I had my phone sitting here and was watching a video that I was following along to make sure I was putting all the washers and bearings and stuff back in. I guess they're not bearings, they're more like, I think it's mostly washers. But I was just making sure I was putting things in the proper order. I'm going to link that video. Anything you see me watching or anything that I use to put this stuff back together, I will put it in the description. So hopefully this is like a one-stop shop for everyone that needs to like follow along. The only thing I have not done, if you watched, is I need to put fork oil in these. So I don't want to just try to cram a bunch of information in your head, but I do want to make sure any questions you would have, I'd hopefully answer in the video. I don't have my ratio right, which is like those little plastic measuring cup things that you mix like two-stroke gas with, but we have like 5 of these in our kitchen. They measure in milliliters. The BBR website gives you information in ounces, so I'm just going to do the conversion, or actually Siri's going to do the conversion, but I'm going to drop this link in the description. What it says is we run 5.5 ounces of 10-weight fork oil per leg, or this is also roughly 140 millimeters from the top of the tube with the springs out and forks fully compressed. So what I'm going to do is, because it's way less of a mess, I would think, to put them together now and just pour the oil in the top and put your cap back on, is I'm just going to do 5.5 ounces. I'm not running 10 weight, I'm running 15. What I'm going to do is just put that in there for now. I'm going to post some stuff on these Facebook groups. If I need to put more in or take some out, I'll do that later. But I'm just going to do this for now. I'm not planning on hitting any triples anytime soon. But I have, so that would be, hey Siri, how many milliliters is 5.5 ounces?
5.5 fluid ounces is 162.65 milliliters.
So 163 milliliters. So I have 175 mark on here. I'm just going to go a little below that, and we'll run with that for now. Well, there it all is. I wanted to get a layout picture just because they look cool. And I wanted to make sure I had something to show as pictures of like everything. First thing I want to do here is I actually had this cover powder coated, and as you can see I have a bag sitting here because all the oil drained out. I'm going to go ahead and put that thing on first, get the new bolts in and stuff, so I can set the motor upright and don't hit that off of anything.
Somewhere on the sea, it got a little longer, so it seems. I burned out, so to speak. Now come a little closer. I feel a little light in the light track. I felt a bit of bad, but I came back. There's still a little light in the light crack. There's still a bit of good, so good.
What I'm doing now is I bought the throttle cable off of a CRF 125 because it's a little bit longer since my forks are going to be higher and the taller handlebars. So the first thing you need to do here is 2 little Phillips head screws here, and this little cover comes off. And if you're used to the old carburetor style throttle cables, these are different because they're fuel injected. It is a push-pull. Looks like I'm going to have to undo it in the throttle as well. I have to take this apart anyway because I also bought the throttle tube off of a CRF 125. That way I can run a full-size grip instead of this little miniature one. So sticky from lube. There we go. Okay, so pull this thing out of here. Can you get it? There we go. I think. So here's what the bottom of the 125 cable looks like, and here's the 110 cable. I'm assuming it's just protecting it from getting a kink. I am just going to bolt them back up as is, and we'll try it out. So I think the way most people are routing these is through this little crack in the right here in the frame. Gets you the most reach out of everything. There it is. Alright, so that is hooked back up. I don't see how that would cause any issues. Alright, so real quick while I already have the camera here. This is, I'm sorry, I'm trying to use a camera that doesn't have a flip around screen, but I'm focused right here, so I should be good. This is the difference in the throttle tubes. This is just a regular full-size grip, and this is like the miniature, the one that they have on like the 50s and 110s. So, they're both push-pull. Just make sure it's the newer 19 and 20 CRF 110 or CRF 125, and basically you're just replacing the whole 110 with a 125 cable and throttle tube. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this back together and let it hang there, and then we can start putting on triple clamps and stuff.
Somewhere on the sea, it got a little longer, so it seems.
Last night's plan, I came out here at like 11 o'clock last night, and I ended up being out here until about 4 o'clock in the morning. My plan was to put the forks together and kind of just like drop the frame on and, you know, kind of look at stuff and get the game plan for what I wanted to do tonight. That changed pretty quickly because I'm one of those people that I wouldn't have been able to go inside and go to sleep with all the stuff that I couldn't figure out on the bike. This is the first bike I've ever owned that was fuel injected. And even if it's not the first bike that's fuel injected that you've had, if you take these apart, take very, very, very detailed pictures of where wiring harnesses go and the routing of all the wires and cables, because there is a ton of wires on this bike for how small it is, and they shove into an extremely small space next to the airbox. I ended up finding some videos online and some pictures last night after I went inside, came back out this morning and rerouted them, so everything's together. But the real issue I ran into last night was after I kind of got all the wiring sorted out and was ready to kind of start building stuff up, I could not get the races out of the steering head. And I mean, I beat on them with everything I had, every punch I could find, everything. So I ended up calling a friend who lives like a couple streets down from us and got a brand new punch out of his garage. He's not home, so I didn't have to personally contact anyone. And that ended up being able to get the bottom one out. But for the top one, I actually ended up having to take a Dremel and take 2 little relief cuts, and then I was finally able to knock it out. The new races went in with pretty much no problem at all. But that was the issue I ran into. So this is where we're at right now. There isn't anything left crazy to do. This was an absolute nightmare. I highly recommend making sure when you do steering stem stuff, have the proper tools. I'm used to being in a garage with every tool on the face of the planet, and I'm also used to being able to just drive to someone's house that knows how to do things and have them do it for me. Right now, that is not an option. I have to figure out everything in here on my own. This is, it doesn't, probably can't tell here, but there is a absolute rat's nest of wires inside of this little black grommet looking thing here. And as you can, I mean, you can see there is a ton of wires that just need sorted properly, and it took me a while to get everything where it was supposed to be. And I was also going off, you know, not great pictures, but this is where we're at right now. We have pretty much everything ready to go. That this thing should be finished here, and like it is 10 o'clock right now, so I'm hoping that maybe by like 1 o'clock this thing is completely together. That probably won't happen, but, you know, wishful thinking. So first thing I got to do before I can assemble is there's one last bearing. I have to put the 2 swing arm bearings back in, and then we can actually start assembling stuff. Okay, so remember how I told you I'm completely on my own? When I said that, I meant it. So I have a vise that I ordered when all this started that I had to move back over to this garage, but I don't have lag bolts to bolt it to any of these workbenches that it's not going to just tear out. So I'm trying to use it to press this bearing in, and I also don't have any pipe to use as an extension, so I'm using the stock handlebars off the 110. I've almost got it in though, so I mean, like I said, we'll just figure it out as we go. Interesting, that's for sure. I don't want you guys to be bored watching this, you know?
Somewhere on the scene, it got a little longer, so it seems. I burned out, so to speak. Now come a little closer. I feel a little light in the light track. I felt a bit of bad, but I came back. There's still a little light in the light track. There's still a bit of good, so good. And I know just what to say. And I know just what to do. And I'm so sick of pain. But it's all too quick with you. Losing this game, I can't afford to be losing this game. And I know you're the safest bet.
All right, final day on the 110 build. I am very, very excited to get this wrapped up. I apologize if this video is like 45 minutes long, but all we have left to do other than putting all the plastics and the seat and stuff back on is chain the front brake and rear brake, just getting the levers put on, and then skid plate, foot pegs, exhaust, and then this bike's ready to go. And this is a question that every time people see pictures of it, they post and ask me about. I'm doing this for the first time. I have talked to a bunch of people that have done it, but I am going to put a Piranha exhaust off of a 2013 to 2018 CRF 110 on my 2020 CRF 110. Here's the deal. I had to come over to the big shop that I usually work out of. No one's here, so that's why I came over.
Guess what, bitch? Coronavirus!
But here's the problem that everybody said it had. It does have, but it's going to be super easy to fix. This is where, so that's how it lines up. So that's the bracket you have to make. Is obviously this got some wiggle in it right now, but when this is tight up front, that's about the bracket you have to make. So it's almost a straight piece, and you need to extend like, you know, maybe 2 inches, something like that. But I have the bracket made for up here. I'll show you in a second. But the other issue that a lot of people talked about, that if you leave your frame aluminum, it's probably not going to matter. But because mine's powder coated, where this touches the frame, it could mess up the powder coat right here. So what I did was put a mark at the top and a mark down at the bottom, and to match the angle of which way the frame is going, I'm going to lay a socket on the back of here and just dent the pipe in just a little bit so there's more room for clearance, so it's not touching, and that way when I bolt the top tight up here, it's not like snugged into the frame and just sits there and melts that powder coat off. Alright, so I'm going to use a flashlight here to show you. You can kind of see, but if you look right there, I put just a small ding in that pipe. I basically just took a socket and rolled across and hammered in, and you have to hit it decently hard. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to crucify me for putting a ding in the pipe like that, but it reminds me, it's very similar to like if you have a factory 2-stroke pipe like I have laying on the floor right here. There's actually factory dents in those pipes. I know those are probably tuned for that, but for what I'm using this bike for, that isn't going to affect it. And like I said, if you use an aluminum frame and don't have it powder coated, you could let that lay against the frame and I don't think you're going to hurt anything. But I'm going to show you the back bracket now, which is super simple to do too. So here is a better look at what I did, and obviously this is a little rough here. It was just a piece of aluminum I could find over at the garage to make this with. If you notice, literally all you have to do is just cut a piece of aluminum, put 2 bolt holes in, and put it basically just a little extension relocation bracket. I don't know what the proper name for something like that would be, but it's super easy to do. This is actually the factory bolt that was in the exhaust, and then I just added a bolt here and put a nut on the other side. And this pipe looks sick. I'm super pumped with how that looks. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all there is to it. It's, you know, everything down here bolts up fine. There's no issues I can see happening. It's not perfect, but I think for what most of us use pit bikes for, it is completely sufficient and at the same time looks pretty good. So one thing I forgot to mention is the only other issue you could maybe come across if you're super picky like I am is when you put the side panels on here, the right here at the bottom of the pipe, just this small piece, the plastic does touch that. On the factory pipe, there's a heat shield across there to protect the plastic from that. So what I'm going to do is put a piece of, on the inside of the side panel, I'm going to put a piece of that like silver flashing tape. I'm not 100% sure what it's called, but it's heat protectant. I've seen it on big bikes before. So I'm going to put a piece of that on there. I don't think it's going to melt the plastic or anything like that, but that's it. That's literally all it takes to put a Piranha 2018 to 2013 exhaust on one of these 2019 and up CRF 110s. So hopefully that helped. The only thing left that I really need to do any type of explanation on is putting on the BBR skid plate. So the way these mount is the two bottom holes are actually going to go into holes that are on the foot peg mount here, and then the other two go up front in these bolt holes that are already here. The bolt hole on the other side is already threaded, ready to go. The one on this side needs to be tapped with an M6. If you look on BBR's website, I'll put the link in the description. It must be the wrong size. Okay, so please ignore the insanely dirty garage, but I am editing the video for the 110 right now and realize I forgot to get a clip of this. So in the video, I originally thought that the tap size that BBR listed was wrong, but what I found out was the first one that I had shipped to me was actually wrong. I ordered an M6 by 1, I think, and I had like some random size that it was just the complete wrong thing is what was shipped to me, and that's when I figured out what it was. Contact Amazon, and they sent the right one out right away. And but yeah, so all you have to do is tap the hole.
That's what she said.
And the bolt goes right in, and you're good to go.
Somewhere on the scene. It got a little longer, so it seems. I burned out, so to speak. Now come a little closer.
Okay, so we're looking at the skid plate from the other side here. This little black guard that's right here, it's covering like an electrical plug, like something similar to one of these. And I don't want that to not be on there. I'm assuming even with the skid plate, it's still protecting it from like mud and rocks and stuff. So I actually had to slightly bend this part of the skid plate out to be able to clear that, and then the bolt still went in fine. So it's not like, I mean, everything still lines up perfectly and is fine. I just thought that maybe it would be something that when someone else is doing this, to be aware of that this skid plate is made to squeeze perfectly in the motor. I'm assuming like the 13s to 18s didn't have this cover here because of this being probably like a fuel injection plug or something to the ECU. So just be aware that you might have to bend that out just a hair to get past that, but then the bolt lines up and everything's fine. So, but other than that, I'm just pumped to finally have a skid plate and that this thing will set on a stand normally.
Somewhere on the scene. It got a little longer, so it seems. I burned out, so to speak. Now come a little closer. I feel a little light in the light track. I felt a bit of bad, but I came back. There's still a little light in the light track. There's still a bit of good, so good. And I know just what to say. And I know.
All right, I found this really cool hat in here. I think it's from Aruba or Hawaii or somewhere. It's from like a long time ago. But I couldn't think of a better hat to put on for the grand reveal of this 110. I hope you guys enjoyed this video or got something educational out of it. I had a ton of fun building this bike. But other than graphics and a seat cover, it's ready to go. So, but stay tuned because I didn't build this thing to look at it. But I'm not going to sit here and talk to you any longer than I already have. So here we go. Here is the Marks Media Deep Creek Apparel CRF 110.
Hey, the beat go off? Hey, I up it, then my heat go off? Bang! I heard he do that sneaky talk. Huh?